The US has long pointed fingers at its ballooning goods trade deficit, using it to justify tariff hikes and protectionist policies. But this focus tells only half the story, and arguably the less important half. The service sector includes just about anything that doesn't come out of a factory, farm, mine or oil well, and today that accounts for nearly 70% of its GDP, ranging from financial services and intellectual property to entertainment, education and healthcare. This isn't a niche advantage, it's a pillar of America's global competitiveness. WTO Director General Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala underscored this. The United States is leading the way, running a services trade surplus with most major economies. In 2023, US service exports hit more than $1 trillion, accounting for a remarkable 13% of total global trade in services. Meanwhile, imports were significantly lower, totaling just under $750 billion, according to the Bureau of Economic Analysis. That's a nearly $280 billion surplus, yet rarely highlighted in discussions of the US economy's weaknesses. The largest contributors to US services exports are business services, travel, financial services, IP licensing, and transportation. It was no longer Ford Motor and General Motors that mattered most, but companies such as Microsoft, Alphabet, and JP Morgan Chase. Software and financial products have become core US exports. For many of the biggest services firms, foreign markets now matter more than the US. By turning global trade into a battleground of tariffs and sanctions, the US is putting its economic secret sauce, the services sector, at risk. Retaliatory moves from trading partners may start with goods, but they rarely end there. The services sector, which employs nearly 80% of the US workforce, could be the next casualty. If there's one area where US dominance in services has proven stickier and more lucrative, it's intellectual property. In 2023, European nations accounted for more than 50% of US software licensing revenue and nearly 70% of IP fees. But that's under fire. As the EU grapples with US tariffs, it's turning its focus to American big tech. The Digital Markets Act is targeting giants such as Google, Apple, Meta, Amazon and Microsoft, aiming to curb their dominance.
The European Union must act to protect consumers and business. The countermeasures we take today are strong but proportionate. As the United States are applying tariffs worth $28 billion, we are responding with countermeasures worth 26 billion euros. This matches the economic scope of the tariffs of the United States.
Privacy violations have already cost these firms billions in fines. Now European regulators are making it clear the digital trade war could hit where it hurts the most.
These fines are the first to be levied by the EU under the Digital Markets Act, which predominantly sort of takes aim at the big Silicon Valley companies, which of course have plenty of users in the European Union.
Warwick Powell, adjunct professor at the Queensland University of Technology, warns that as the US imposes tariffs on goods, it risks not only a self-inflicted trade war on physical products, but also exposing its dominant services sector to retaliation. Europe in particular has strong reasons to scrutinise US tech, given its dominance in the EU market. Meanwhile, other nations should be wary of becoming too dependent on the US services sector, which could leave them vulnerable to its growing influence. The impact isn't limited to tech. Travel, including education, is already showing signs of strain. Amid rising geopolitical tensions and tit-for-tat trade policies, international visitors are rethinking their travel plans to the US, a direct blow to the tourism, education, and hospitality industries that drive billions in annual export revenue. According to research firm Tourism Economics, inbound travel to the US is now projected to fall more than 5% in 2025, contrasting with a nearly 9% growth that had been previously forecast. For the US higher education sector, it's also feeling the chill. Trade tensions, coupled with rising geopolitical scrutiny, are dampening the appeal of American universities and research institutions.
President Trump is escalating his attacks on Harvard University. Just days after a federal judge temporarily halted his administration's ban on Harvard enrolling international students, the president is now demanding, quote, names and countries of the thousands of international students at the Ivy League school.
Recent deportations of international students and what critics describe as a neo-McCarthyist crackdown on foreign researchers have cast a shadow over the US as a hub for academic and scientific collaboration. For many students and scholars, the US is no longer seen as a safe or stable place to build their futures.
The school is truly in a crisis, but if you're an international student at Harvard today, you got a clear message from the Department of Homeland Security, which was either transfer or leave the country. And what's remarkable about all of this is that about 25, a little bit more than 25% of all the students at Harvard are international students.
According to the Pi Network, American universities could lose up to 30,000 Chinese students alone and $1.15 billion in tuition fees over the next decade due to trade-related conflicts. International students contribute up to $50 billion to the American economy and support some 368,000 jobs in the sector. But travel and education are discretionary sectors, and when the geopolitical climate turns hostile, customers look elsewhere. Global trade at its core is an interconnected system where each country leverages its competitive advantages to foster mutual benefit. The exchange of products and services drives economic growth and prosperity on a global scale. There is no logical reason why the US should leave its services exports out of the conversation, especially when they represent a growing and pivotal portion of its economy.